The new Symmetra on PTR is a ton of fun. A lot of her kit is far more active than it used to be. I have a lot I want to say about the new character and the implications she's going to have on the meta, but first of all, I need to point out a thing that I'm pretty sure is going to get changed. There is an exploit with her main weapon that allows you to get more DPS than you probably should. I assume this is going to get fixed because it looks so incredibly broken. I don't attempt to use it in the gameplay because I really wanted to see what she's going to play like if that exploit was removed. And the issue is that the first bit of damage is where the majority of the burst comes from. So if you either feather the trigger or quickly swipe off and on the target, you'll actually get more DPS, which is really silly. I hope this gets fixed and it's not intentional, but overall Symmetra is a much more viable damage dealer in a particular role. For obvious reasons, you can't call her a brawler, but oddly enough, in the medium close range brawl is where her damage is most effective. Her primary fire is quite significantly shorter range than even Zarya's beam, which goes a lot farther than you might anticipate if you're not that familiar with Zarya, but in comparison, you have to be quite close for the Sim beam to actually reach its target, and that puts you in harm's way. Not to mention, her projectiles are quite slow, making them quite difficult to hit at any type of range, meaning that this close medium area is where she wants to be dealing most of her damage, and in any case, any further range than that, skill shots are just going to straight up have their way with her, so she kind of has to get in close anyway. And we'll cover all of the things that have changed about her kit, but I think the one that is most different to her previous playstyle is her primary fire, now refunding, not reducing ammo when she shoots shields. This creates a kind of interesting new type of character that we haven't had before, so that when you get into those sort of death ball v death ball stalemate situations, the fact that you can shoot forever and ramp up your damage gives Symmetra a serious tactical advantage in these situations. It's hard to kind of replicate this on the PTR because everyone's kind of playing crazily all over the place anyway, but once you get in these Rhine v Rhine matchups where you have a Symmetra and the enemy doesn't, let's say they have a Brigitte, a character that's incredibly popular in the brawl comps right now. If you're able to keep Symmetra in her pocket where she can charge up her primary and burn down that Rhine shield, I think you're going to be at a significant advantage in those fights. In fact, I really can see how this new sim can fit into countering those 303 Brigitte brawl comps that have kind of been in vogue recently. Because it used to be in the Zarya Rhine matchup where really only Zarya was the type of character that could get more powerful as those brawls extended, because obviously her damage goes up, and if you accidentally shot or shredded the enemy Zarya barriers, if you didn't get a kill off of it, which is the one time you 100% definitely do want to shoot Zarya bubbles, by the way, then she gets charged and she's more powerful afterward. But Symmetra now can cook into those shields and she gets powered while shooting them, so there's at least a bit of a even damage trade going on, even if you accidentally shoot Zarya bubbles. And then keep in mind as well, Brigitte on the front line has a shield that I think is quite strong and quite a lot of health, but this new Symmetra adds a new element that can shred through the Brigitte shield and all the shielding that's in front of you and kind of set up for you to actually damage through and find the mark with your other characters that are trying to get past all of the shielding and bubbles. That aspect is probably the major thing that affects the current meta that people didn't see coming, but the other aspects of her kit we're going to break down as well. Her alternate fire is a lot more fun for me to use personally. I love shooting projectiles and leading them, and you kind of mischievously feel like you're outsmarting them a little bit. Overall, Sim feels like a cross between Zarya and Junkrat with the way her weapon works. You can get some impactful burst, and it's much more useful as a dueling component now. However, the old Zarya charge shot used to go through barriers and kind of nuked characters that way. And that's another reason why even the current live version of Symmetra is pretty good against that death ball comp that I was talking about. But this new Symmetra is just a little bit better with that primary fire. Overall, though, it's hard to rate the alt fire in comparison to the other ranged characters that exist in the game right now. Of course, we have Hanzo. Pharah's got a jetpack that can get angles on her opponents to do splash damage as well. Junkrat can arc and bounce his nades. So the alt fire, although very fun, isn't really where the strength of Symmetra lies. It's more about the primary fire and the other utilities she brings. Keep in mind, though, because it does splash damage now, you can aim for the feet in order to splash on the ground like you would with a Zarya projectile. So that as well can make them a bit easier to hit. I'm not exactly sure what I think about her turrets at this point, and it probably is going to take some of the more dedicated Symmetra players to find the best application for them. Because you only get 3 of of them, it's pretty hard to make those cute little nests that insta-kill somebody as they walk through. However, because you can throw them now, you can put them on ceilings and stuff where you used to be able to not reach, but they can still reach an enemy. There's a lot of cute places that you can find like that, especially on parts where an enemy is going to want to get to a significant piece of high ground. You can lay a trap for them there. I think what's most interesting, though, is trying to use them in a mid-fight. I found this difficult to do effectively, but I'm sure over time people will get better at it. Because her primary fire can be so strong, it can be difficult to decide if you want to throw down a turret on an escaping target rather than just nuke them. But once you kind of figure out that balance and know when, especially the slow effect is going to be useful, that's going to help you and your team lock things down. Now, the last two parts of her kit are a bit wonky to describe. The problem with the teleporter is that I think a lot of people don't realize that it's just a wraith form for your team, and wraith form isn't that good for a lot of reasons, right? It's like slow, obvious, and you definitely can use it to do some goofy strategies like try to set up a riptire or teleporting a molten core turret or a bastion behind the enemy. I just don't really see that kind of thing working more than once in a game, and I'm more excited for its high-level application, really, of some of the pro teams to use it in a more concerted siege-like manner. The outposition potential is really there. They're on one high ground, you can like quickly get to another. This all is on a map-to-map basis, and I think matters more for set engagement modes like Assault, and it's much harder to use with any level of consistency on the other modes because often they're more spread out in general, making Symmetra's weapon and entire playstyle a bit weaker, because ultimately, no matter what, if you have good ground, it doesn't necessarily make up for the fact that one of your damage characters has a really niche way to apply damage. Her weapon works best against the brawl comps, but high ground is better for range characters. So realistically, the teleporter doesn't work best to help her, but it could help her team. We'll have to see how the application of that pans out over time. Likely better in an organized group or pro context, but not a ton of value in uncoordinated solo play. And the last bit of kit is her ultimate now, the massive projected barrier wall. This is kind of similar to the teleporter in my opinion, and is going to work best in those set engagements like Assault. If the enemy's all clumped up in one area, well, you can use an ultimate to just purely block off line of sight from that, guaranteeing you ground, useful ground that might entirely win the game, or what's even slightly better is splitting off the enemy as they try to engage and allow yourselves to divide and conquer with all of the range characters of the enemy not in play. The reason why I think this works best in Assault is because that's the game mode where most oftentimes the engagements are horizontal in nature, whereas the payload and hybrid maps are often bigger and have a lot more flank routes, a lot of different ways that you can choose to engage, and the control maps often are more of a deathmatch arena with Pharahs flying in the sky and damage coming from all over the place. I think it would be less reliable to get a big value wall in those instances. Also, it doesn't come up too quickly, so it's kind of hard to use it in response, whereas like a Mei wall, you feel like you can pop it in effect really quick in order to deny follow-up damage on like a Graviton Surge. See that Diva Bomb coming at you, you put the Mei wall up to block it. Huge play, feels great, but because it's an ultimate and not on a cooldown like Mei wall is, I think it feels a little bit of a risky play to go for that type of thing, and you probably want to save it for a set engagement that you know you're going to get value out of, whereas trying to use it in a mid-fight, it's going to be tough. If you do catch out the high noon or soldier sights out in the distance and are able to block their line of sight, great, but overall I think it works better and more reliably as an initiation tool since it has so much life that allows you to structure the battlefield from a set point and lets you flood in on the space that you want to get to. What do you guys think about the new Symmetra and her meta implications? Do you find the character a lot more fun to play like I do? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day, so you're going to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.